All right, welcome back to the show. My name is Chad, and today we're talking with Todd McFarlane again. Um, how's it going, Todd? I know, as we were saying, we briefly got to chat at New York Comic Con, but you were busy, and I didn't want to keep you from any of your other scheduled rounds. But how are you doing?
Good, good. I mean, just like everybody else, just trying to push a boulder up a hill and make a living, right? So nobody wakes up and does any of us any favors. We got to do them for ourselves. So, but I'm a bit on autopilot. Been doing it for 40 years now. So today's Monday. You get up and you do your thing. So this is part of it.
Well, it's great to talk with you again, and we're going to be talking about Spawn 360, which is coming out in January, and it's your return to the title. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've written the vast majority of it, the Spawn title over the years, decades now. But sort of stepped away a bit just to sort of let somebody else come in, that had sort of different set of eyes. Um, and then I went off and was sort of doing a gunslinger, trying to expand the books, and then took over King Spawn. But I just sort of have a hankering for my OG guy. So Brett Booth. I'd been talking about to Brett because he and I had worked on the Gunslinger book
Mhm.
together, and we were just like, man, we had a pretty good time, right? It'd be nice to find something to do, and then the easy answer would be like, oh, well, why don't I just come back and plot for you on Spawn, and then I can move Rory over to King Spawn. So we had the two Spawn books, and we essentially swapped the two writers. Yep.
So, being this is issue 360, kind of give us, I know you've probably talked about it before in other places, but kind of the origin of Spawn and what inspired you to create the character some 360 issues ago.
Uh, well, look at the simple origin of them is is not overly complicated, right? I was a 16-year-old kid, started collecting comic books kind of late in the game at 16, sort of fell in love with Americana superhero comic books because I hadn't been collecting up to that point. I'd had the odd one in my life, but nothing that was considered to be steady. And and I started collecting, and from that, bam, right, I got hit by a bolt of lightning and went, man, these are super cool. I was a doodler. I go, man, I'm gonna I've got a direction. I'm gonna teach myself how to draw this style. And so from that point all the way up till I got a professional job, I was constantly doing superhero drawing, collecting superhero comic books. And somewhere along the line, besides drawing Superman and Batman and Spider-Man and everybody else, I created a bunch of characters, and one of them from that time, between 16 and 20, was this character called Spawn. He was the guy. Like I probably created 25 original characters back then, but Spawn was always like the guy I thought was the coolest. And eventually, I actually even got to the point where I was going to publish a comic book of him. I think it's like a 40-page book or something like that. I still have all the pages. I was just talking recently to Eric Stevenson at Image Comics, the
Hmm.
the editor, and he had a suggestion. And I just ran it by my partners and going, you think anybody would buy this book? And what it is like take the original 40-page story I did when I was 16, 17. Because I've got all the pencils. But then ink it and color it and write it with my skill sets of today. So it would basically be 60-year-old Todd inking 16-year-old Todd, right? To because as you can imagine, my artwork wasn't very good. back then, but my inking would polish my flaws pretty easily. But they actually thought it was such a weird idea that people might actually get a kick out of it. That like literally the very first Spawn story that came out of my head from when I was a teenager. So, but anyways, he was a character that I liked. He was in the in a group of it. I eventually broke into Marvel. All those 25 characters I created, I never pulled any of them out and gave to Marvel or DC. And then in 1992, when we began Image Comic Books, when a bunch of us left and co-founded Image, we each had to come up with our own book. And I reached in and got the guy that was my favorite, which was Spawn, came out with them and been doing it ever since, to the point that you're right. We got 360 of it. Yeah.
Now, having that many issues of Spawn, out there, how do you keep it, fresh for yourself, um, and in turn readers?
Well, I'm going to assume that I've had very few, if any, readers have been there continuously from '92 to today, right? So the only person kind of that's been around the whole time have been Tom Morzikowski. He was lettered every issue, all 360 issues, I think minus one, that his wife did. Uh, and I look at I've said before that I think that if Stan Lee had written 200, 300 issues of Spider-Man, it would have evolved differently, right? Or Iron Man or
Mhm.
whatever else. And the reason I say that, and it's not just Stan, I think it's true for any writer. You could probably look at Chris Claremont and what he did with X-Men. Um, that you have to change things up if you're going to be the same writer on the same book for that many issues. Because if you just keep regurgitating the exact same thing, then it's going to be, I think, tough to keep your own personal interest in it, right? Like if Stan does 50 and then Jerry Conway comes in and basically redoes what Stan did, and then Roy Thomas comes in and redoes what Jerry did, and then Len Wein and Marv Wolfman and everybody down the line, it's sort of easy to do it in 30, 40 issue bunches, right? But I believe if any of them had done 200, 300 issues, then they would have evolved the character uh, overall. So um, I think that the book at its core, done right, and it's really sort of what I wanted to do on Kingspawn, is I think it's evolved more from a superhero book to a little bit more of a creep book at times.
Mhm.
I think on its best day, I think it's a horror book. I tell writers who write in the Spawn universe that you're basically telling a story of war. And so I've got all these other characters now that have sort of populated the Spawn universe. And if you think about it as war, and that you have allies and confidants, and then sometimes they betray you, and sometimes they'll be spies or whatever. And if you think about it like that, I think you can write this a lot easier and more meaningful. And it's not just, I got to beat the bad guy today, that there's bigger dynamics that are going on. So if you were to ask me by issue 20 to talk to you about Spawn, I could probably go for half an hour. If you ask me about the mythology of Spawn today, my first question would be, how much time do you have? Right?
So, with 360, issue 360, where do we pick up in the Spawn story?
So when I said, "Hey, Brett, I'll come back and let's just jump right into it," right? Because Brett likes to do big bombastic stuff. So for the last about year of comic books, all my comic books, all the heroes have had their powers stripped of them, right? They're basically Batman. I've been doing Batman stories of people who are really skilled, but again, if they take a bullet in the forehead, the game's over. Um, And so we've been doing that for a year, and that was a byproduct. That was a byproduct of what happened in issue 350, where Spawn there was a challenge to take over the throne of hell that's been empty since issue 100, right? This is the
Hmm.
thing I keep sort of telling people. I go, there's been a void there. And if you look at it on a geopolitical level, if you get a big void in any sort of major place, like if there was no leader of China or no leader of Russia, it would change the dynamics and how people not only react to that country, but also the people within it on who's going to take over the power. And so to me, I've been hinting over the 250 issues of like there's sort of a bit of a slow race to see if anybody is capable of taking over the throne. And again, hell in my mind is more like Dante in Inferno. There's like levels of it.
Hmm.
It's like a corporation. It's so big that you have 10 VPs, vice presidents at your corporation. But what ended up happening was in 350, Spawn knew that two of the most egregious horrible people, in this case, the character called Clown and the character called Sin, were racing to get to the throne. And if either one of them sat on the throne, it was going to be a problem. And his only solution was, then I may have to sit on the throne then. Not because I want to, not because I think there's any sort of positive. It's just I cannot let them be in position of power.
Hmm.
Um, and so he got like that close to basically, you know, being the king. Um, but again, at the end, with a little bit of a conversation with his dead wife, chose somebody else, somebody from sort of there's heaven, hell, and then there's somebody that's over above it. It's called Mother Nature in my mind. This is part of the mythology, right? Mother Nature
Yeah.
supersedes both of them because she can just take away the planet that they're fighting over all the time. Uh, so he put this character called Nyx on the throne. It's just that the throne corrupts people. And he knew it. He
Hmm.
knew that if he sat on it, he would possibly get corrupted himself and get his powers turned in a way that he never wanted to. But he put Nyx on there, hoping, because she was from another place, that she wouldn't get corrupted. But we're going to find out that that wasn't possible. Like nobody is able to be immune to it. So one of her first moves inadvertently was she thought to sort of help protect things a bit is I'm just going to wipe out all the powers on Earth, right? And that's where we were for the last year. Um, but now we're at the point where her corruption is now led her to want bigger ambitions. And to get bigger ambitions, she needs Spawn has sort of a spark. She needs his power as a spark. Um, but two things have to happen. One, he has to be alive, and he's a bit reckless. He's a bit reckless in his human form. And two, he has to get his powers back. But there's no way to get his powers back because she laid a blanket across, or that took away everybody's power. So to give him his powers back, she has to basically unlock everybody's powers. Um,
Hmm.
so so 360 is going to be sort of the prequel to that. That we're going to go from almost one extreme to the other of no powers. And in that year, what's happened is there's like sort of the human, there's heaven agents, hell's agents, and then there's the one that's always been sort of the stepchild, which is the vampires. But because none of these have powers, the vampires went to the top for the first time in century. The vampires are like, shit, it's our time to shine. And they took it, and they know that potentially the powers might come back. So what we should do is try and wipe out all these in here, the heaven and the hell. If we get rid of them, the
Hmm.
powers come back, then there's nobody to basically push us back down from being number one, right? Like this is just corporations and governments. Anybody who's in power wants to maintain power. Nobody willingly says, you know what, you got a better idea than me. Sure, you go ahead and you pass me. It doesn't happen. Human nature doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
Um, so so we're just in this sort of weird triangle of everybody trying to keep their power or get their powers back so they can come back and retain it. And in 360, which will be sort of the prequel, and 361, which will be even more so, it's just going to all basically the dam's going to burst. And now it's going to actually be the opposite of what we had for a year. It's going to be what I would affectionately call hell on earth now, right? Because everybody is
Mhm.
there and everybody gets their powers back. And here we go. And the vampires are in charge. And how does all of that get reconfigured? Boom. And who are going to be, again, going back to the metaphor of war, who are going to be the allies and who are going to be the people you're going to be able to trust and not trust. And here we go, right? And it's going to get, for the first time in a meaningful way, it's going to get really public, right? For 300 plus issues, Spawn's existence and what he's doing has been sort of hidden into the shadow, right? But
Mhm.
but this is sort of too big now to contain. Plus, I've got multiple books, and it's you're not going to be able to keep it away from the prying eyes of humans. So, anyways, that's the long-winded way of saying some cool shit's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. So will we see any of the effects or story points from 360 playing out in the other Spawn universe titles that are currently being
Yeah, I mean, the easy one is that those books will quickly see they get their powers back, right?
Mhm.
And so that'd be it. I gave thought of whether I wanted to do a big intercompany, hell on earth campaign that ran across all the titles. And maybe this first bite at the apple might not. It's just sort of setting the table. And
Mhm.
then I at some point I'd like to do it for maybe 2 months. Nothing
Mhm.
extravagant. 2 months because I got 4 books. So it would sort of, you wanted to get the whole story, you'd have to buy 8 issues. But I hesitate a little bit because I never liked big company crossover stuff that bled into 25 books because I might not buy those
Yeah.
books. And if I didn't buy them, I was frustrated. I always thought that was way cooler if you just did like Crisis on Infinite Earth and you put it off in a corner and you did it there and there was the story.
Yes.
And then some of it spilled out, but it wasn't necessary to buy those other issues to get the bigger story, right? So I just to me, it's just a personal decision from when I was a kid collecting.
I understand, that because, sometimes when you go through events in the, from Marvel or DC and they, banner the book for the crossover and there's like one or two panels that might tangentially tie into what's going on and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I really didn't, I
I,
really
I,
didn't.
Chad, I remember years ago, decades ago, shit, when I was early in my career, I was doing a book called Infinity Incorporated over at DC, if I recall right, there were a couple issues that did tie into Crisis on Infinite Earth, but it was exactly what you said. It was like 2 pages that just sort of did a wink and a nod and weren't really, to my mind, from my recollection, meaningful in any way. They were just part of being caught in the net of it to try and boost sales. And I don't know. I remember it's weird. The majority of the decisions I make on my comic books still are based on what the 16, 17, 18-year-old young Todd was feeling when he was collecting, right?
Mhm.
Like I like that. We should do that. I thought that was okay. Maybe we'll do it. And then there was stuff that just bugged me. And I just go, no, man, I'm not going to do that because it bugged me. And I'm going to assume that there's people that will feel the exact same way, 40 years later to the same thing. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just
Mhm.
being silly in my own head. but a lot of it was where did I feel like I was enjoying, or where did I feel like I was being taken advantage of?
So having either written or being involved with 360 issues of Spawn, is there areas, and if you don't want to get into specific, that's fine, but are there, areas of the Spawn character that, you still would like to explore or feel that could be explored, for issue?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just going to pick a number, 700.
So let me just see if I can break it off into simple, easy chunks for some of the people who are listening that are going 360. Oh man, right? Um, for about 250 issues, Spawn was the character who was just, he got the powers, and then he was just saying to everybody that came at him, right? Whether it was humans, heaven, hell, anything in between. He was just saying, leave me alone. I want to lead my life. And it was a metaphor for like when, I broke away from Marvel to going to help start Image. Um, that it was just like, guys, I'm tired of being told what to do. I just want to do it. I'm not religious either, so I don't have those pieces on me. But again, we all think about religion and government and corporations sort of controlling our lives, right? We go, it's all rigged, right? I mean, you talk to people, we're cynical. And I guess you can take that point of view, or you can just try and lead your own path. That's me personally, right?
Mhm.
That's my life. It's been that way. I don't like the way toys are made. I'll go make my own toy company, and I don't know anything about toys. So uh so that was Spawn. He was just like, leave me alone. Let me just do my thing, right? Just stop it, stop it, stop it. But ultimately, and it took a long time, he finally realized. So that was segment one, which is the 250 issue. Leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. And then he realized he can't, right? Like it's impossible. You have these powers, there are these entities, and you can try and deny it all you want, but you're in this game. You don't get the game doesn't stop because you don't want to play it. It's being played, right?
Mhm.
So so he disappeared for a while. We came up with this character in 185, Jim Downing, who took over the mantle of Spawn, and Al Simmons disappeared. What was happening to him during those 80 issues, all the way up to issue 250 when he came back, was he was then he accepted he was in the game. So he said, if I'm going to be in the game and I can't get out of the game, I should learn the rules. And he basically was teaching himself.
Mhm.
So that when he came back at 250, to me, I wanted to move him. This is what you're saying. How do you move the character? I wanted to move him closer to, and not as big and grand because he still has his emotions, whatever else. But I want to move him from the difference between Conan the Barbarian and King Conan. If you've read either one of those comic books, they're a different read, right? One is the young guy who takes up the sword and it's like, I'm going to just go on the battlefield and I'll take on anybody, right? That's the 20, 30-year-old guy, right? And then and then the King Conan is the guy who's been through enough battles, luckily has survived, and said, there may be other ways to injure my opponent. And it's not on the battlefield all the time, and it's not by taking their heads off. It may be take away their power, take away their connections, take away their money, take away any influence that they have, make them weak on the stage of the world. And if you can do that, okay, then you can take away whatever power that they have. Take away Elon Musk's money. Nobody listens to him, right?
Does anybody
So
listen to him now?
sure,
Well, some people do.
a portion of people, because
Yeah.
because here's the piece. Here's the piece, and it's not about Musk. It's about us as humans and humanity, right? The history of what and how we react has been there since the very first book that's ever been written. We bend to temptation, And I don't think there's seven deadly sins. I think there's one. It's called greed, personal
Hmm.
greed, ambition. So if you can feed humans to get close to power, they they will do whatever you want to. So I have, again, a lot of the demons and angels on earth are hiding in plain sight. They look like you and I. They don't have big wings and horns. They look like you and I. And what if Elon Musk and Bill Gates and George Soros and the Koch brothers, what if they all actually were demons? And their thing is to corrupt humans. It's, I hate to say it, it's kind of easy. What's your price?
Hmm.
I'll pay it. What position do I have to give? How much money do I have to give? What do you need? And for the rare person who will not take that deal, who doesn't have quote unquote a price, then you just go to plan B, which is I know where your wife lives, I know where your children live. And so you just you get them another way. But
Hmm.
eventually, if you have enough power and person, you can bend the will of a human being either willingly or unwillingly. And here's a bad metaphor. If you've ever watched like Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel, one of those shows, and they do these like people on the street stuff, and they say, "Hey, how did you like the opening to the Olympics?" And they do that 2 days before the opening of the Olympics. So the Olympics actually hasn't opened yet.
Hmm.
And people will actually say they saw it and they watched it. Why?
Right.
Because this isn't even 15 minutes of fame. This is 15 seconds of fame. And people who otherwise I would assume are decent people will lie on national TV that they saw something that didn't exist. Now, they're doing that, Chad, free of, they're not even getting any money for that. They're doing it
Right.
just for a little bit of fame. So, what happens if I gave them a lot of fame and I gave them a lot of power and I gave them a lot of money? How much would they lie for me?
Hmm.
Right. And so
I can see.
that's the corruption of us as humans, and we do it in real life. Forget, I don't have to make this stuff up. We do it in real life every single day. So Spawn's whole fight now, once he comes back at 250, was okay, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. He sees that's not going to happen. And now he comes back at 250, and his attitude is, I know the game. And so I'm going to hunt you down. You don't have to worry about hunting me down anymore. I'm going to hunt you down. And when I come and find you, here's what you're going to say to me: Spawn, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. He's going to turn the table, right? From being
Hmm.
an unwilling participant, the first 250 issues, to being now the aggressor. And his thing was that the dead zones, which is how heaven and hell sort of put their influence on earth, he locked those down for a while because I thought writers were using them as a crutch. Um, and said, okay, no more. There's no more coming and going. But whatever's on earth is now stuck. It's been locked on here, and I'm going to hunt them down one at a time until I vanquish them. He doesn't know how many that were there. And at some point, he goes, I'm going to have to maybe build my own army because they have a little bit of a mini army. And so, okay, because I can only do one a day for, it's only 365 a day. So what if there's 30,000 of them, right? I don't know. It'd take too long while they're doing their evil and their corruption. And I'm talking about both heaven and hell. Just so you know, in my book, they're both equal. They both want the exact same thing. They want to dominate each other, and they want to dominate and control humanity, the souls of human. They want the souls of human to bend a knee to them, right? Both of them. Not because they're going to do good, but they want to be able to use them because eventually Armageddon's going to come, and that's where they need the humans. So I've got this weird thing where Mother Teresa, in my mythology, Mother Teresa can actually be in hell, and Genghis Khan can actually be in heaven. And when you try and make the trade, God's going, I don't want Mother Teresa. Why do I want Mother Teresa? Armageddon's coming. I'd rather have Genghis Khan because I want to wipe you
Yeah.
out. I want to wipe you out. So you keep the bingo, ladies. I'm good. So, but right now, Spawn's thing is, A, I need to protect humanity, who doesn't know that they need protecting because this has all been done in the shadows. And I need to build up an army, and let's see if we can't get to the point where you want to give us free will, then be gone off Earth. Be gone. Both of you. A pox in both your houses, right? Just let us be humans and flawed that we are. Let us lead our flawed lives the way we see fit and keep taking your temptation away. Be gone, right? That's it. That's his goal now because it was all about getting back to his wife in the first 250 issues, and then she died. I took that crutch away. So now,
Mhm.
like, so what do you do when you take away the biggest thing that you were sort of focused on? The answer is, for me, with Spawn, he had to expand it. That it's like he was trying to protect Wanda, and now he has to protect his friends and his families, and to some extent the world, right? But
Mhm.
he can't do it as one man. So those are the slow evolutions of the character that have sort of happened in these big chunks that are coming along. And now with everybody with all their powers all at once, all on that combo has never happened. So here we go. Buckle up. The rodeo's about to begin.
It seems like we're kind of with the story of Spawn hitting like a mid stride. If there comes a time, do you have like an end game for the character? Or I mean, you don't have to give specifics if you do.
Yeah, no. I oddly I knew the end by issue three.
Okay.
When I wrote it. So I hope I never have to write it like
Hmm.
Superman or Batman or Spider-Man. I hope I go to my grave and the character has enough sort of momentum to keep going and will go. And you never have to write the end of Sherlock Holmes or Spider-Man or these characters, James Bond. They're just going to always be there. But do I have the philosophy of why all this is happening? Yep. And what the reasoning is of all this. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know that I want to give it away.
No,
So remember,
I
I
wouldn't
remember.
I wouldn't ask you to.
No, because I remember one of the great comic books I ever read. I mean, it was so impactful to me, and it was early in my collecting. There was a book called Jonah Hex, and
Hmm.
it's a cowboy character from DC, and they came out with back then they used to do annuals and these other thick books, but I think they used to call them spectaculars. And they did the Jonah Hex spectacular, right? And and it showed the death of Jonah Hex. And it was, if you can ever get your hands on it, I recommend to everybody to read it because it's a staggeringly good story. It is a staggeringly good story. Um, but the problem with it from after reading it was that I then knew that he was going to basically survive all of his comic books thereafter, right? So until I get to this story, so it was like, oh man, because I don't know when or how or why Batman's going to die. So there's still like it could be this issue. Who knows, right? I mean, we know intellectually they won't let that happen, but we still there's a little piece that maybe who knows, maybe he gets amputated. Who knows something. Uh, but so I'll keep it. I'll keep it, and hopefully, as I said at the very beginning when we started Image, the goal was to keep Image alive my whole life, and to create a character that lived beyond my last breath. That was sort of the two-step goal, and I think I'm kind of halfway there, right? I think I got another 40 years, and we'll see if both of those are true when I take that last breath.
Cool. So, um, would you like to kind of give a pitch for issue 360 as we kind of start to wrap up here because I know you're busy and I'm I'm busy
Yeah,
and
yeah. So for a long time fan, probably the last year, it's like okay, it's been pretty subdued because all the powers are gone. But for people who still sort of have a fondness of like a little bit of the old OG Spawns and or superhero comic books in general, I think what Brett and I are going to do in terms of the art and story moving forward is gonna lean more into what people have a tendency to like out of sort of quote unquote superhero comic books. There's going to
Mhm.
be, lots of sort of villains and characters and flamboyance and action, all the things. What I want to do though is just layer it with a more of a maturity and a sophistication, although it's going to look like what you're used to, which is fun. The reasoning and the rationales are going to hopefully get a little deeper as to why everybody's doing everything instead of just I'm the bad guy and I want to beat the good guy up. So that's it. I think it's again for people who've been sort of him and Han. Again, it's another jumping on point, right? I mean, I try to create them at 300 and at 350. I think this is another one because, like I said, everybody's getting their powers, and
Mhm.
it's going to be gung ho here. So, and it's going to be fun to look at.
So, what, if anything, is Todd McFarlane reading or, enjoying books, comics, anything? Or do you have the time to do that?
Yeah, yeah. And I've got my wife and I live by my three kids here, and so we're busy. I play on a hardball team with my son. Right, I'm the old man. He's the youngest guy on the team at 25, and I'm the old guy at 63. Right, and everybody's like in between. They're about 35. Um, I usually what I try to do is I try to find good TV shows and or movies that not only that I think are engaging, but that I like to listen to dialogue, right? If I have one frustration in comic books, I think it's the I think it's the dumbing down of the dialogue, right?
Mhm.
The one comment that I'm constantly making and saying to my writers or anybody, it's like if you've never uttered that line to some extent, don't write it, right? I don't get it. I don't get why once we put costumes on, we have to talk differently, right? Like I don't understand. I don't like, oh, I do they know who they're dealing with, and they will feel the wrath of me, and we will get them, and over my dead body will like it's all just like it to me. People in dramas are trying to accomplish the same thing, right? If you go to The Godfather or something, there's still a clash between groups, but they don't talk silly. And it's hard for me to imagine that if I put like costumes on them, that all of a sudden they would change the way they talk to each other. And so I'm always constantly going, you're an adult, write adult dialogue to these adult characters in these situations. And I understand there's a fantasy there, but I don't understand why the dialogue has to be, to some extent, at times childish. I don't want, I'm not trying to appeal to a 13-year-old right now, a 12-year-old. I want to write something that somebody will review and go, wow, that was surprising. That's surprising.
Yeah.
So and I don't do it. I think at times I have moments where I go there, right? Which is why for me the easiest characters for me to write are Sam and Twitch, the two detectives,
Mhm.
because
Yep.
they're just people, and I go, oh, I just get to write two people talking to each other, right? But we have a tendency, and I get it, and it's almost every comic book fight to me should be silent because if you were doing a movie nobody would be talking while they're beating up on each other, right?
Right.
So maybe you could put some captions and give some added information, but you don't. But we have a tendency to just like, I'll get you, I'll do that. Like it's just, I don't know. I getting too old for it, Chad. I just like I want something that's growing up with me, and that's part of the evolution of 360 issues. Is that I've been getting old too, so I want something that's keeping pace a little bit that I started as a kid, an adolescent, and now, a young adult. Now I'm a fully formed adult, right? It's like I want something that can still use the topics, but give me a plausibility, like a real plausibility, real emotion, real drama, that matters as to why those two got together instead of I just want to be king of the hill, right? And that's it.
Right.
That's my goal. And I've seen writers do it. Sadly, it's in short demand to me. But that's what I keep sort of wanting from people without sort of boring them. That's just talking heads talking about what they did on Saturday. I don't want that. But I think that these people should. I think being a hero should be hard
Hmm.
because it
Okay.
makes it more interesting to watch and to read them. And when it's easy, then and when the character is doing what I consider to be silly lines, um, then I go, oh, so the hero isn't afraid. There's no jeopardy. Because if there was any real jeopardy, the hero wouldn't be talking in such a cavalier, casual way. So if the hero isn't, and I do this with my movie, if the hero isn't afraid, why should I be as the audience?
Hmm.
Which is why I can't watch like superhero movie because it's just repeating a lot of that sort same dialogue. But sadly, Chad, my wife will tell you, I think that 80% of TV has bad dialogue, right? And then every now and then I just go, oh my God, like real people kind of talking like real, right? I mean, I just started watching the other day this show called The Diplomat, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
multiple adults acting like adults. Wow. Wow. Like and when I come across those, I just like they penetrate because it's like so it is doable, right? There are these jewels that are out there that you can pick to my ear, right?
Hmm.
So so the one and I'll give you a bad example and then we can go the bad example for me of dialogue is the one where the man and the wife get into a fight and it goes something like this. We have been married for 14 years and we have 3 children. And what are you going to do? Because Susan, who's your best friend, I slept with her, you're going to throw this all away. Now, from an entertainment point of view, all that information is necessary. I get it. Okay, it's all necessary. But here's what I can tell you is not real. If I get in a fight with my wife, I do not have to remind her how many children we have. I do not have to tell her that the neighbor that's her best friend is her best friend. And I don't have to tell her how many years we've been married. That's known information. So if that's relevant, and I'm not saying it is, you have to first ask
Yeah.
if it's relevant. If that's relevant information, somebody else has to get it across. So
Right.
somebody at the office has to go, shit, or somebody in the room that saw the fight then has to like go and go, fuck, you should have saw it. Fuck, it was a haymaker fight. And the guy goes, that couple have been married a long time, man. I don't know. They got a good family, but it could get destroyed. Like, so now you haven't said 14 years, but you said it's been a long marriage, right?
Right.
Like, does it matter if it's 14 or 18, 16? I mean, it's long, right? And they got a family, so they got kids. Like, I just think that there's more natural ways to get information across than what I call sort of PowerPoint bullet point information,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And so as soon as I hear that kind of writing, I have to turn it off. I can't go for the ride on it. And sadly, superhero movies do it all the time, all the time. And I can't. I got to click it off. So I can't do it.
Let me explain my origin again for the umpteenth time.
Yeah, I've said before, if somebody made me in charge of Hollywood, first thing I'd do, I'd find all the best drama writers, and I'd make them do all the action movies
Hmm.
because they can create characters, which is why they're great at drama. That when you put those characters and you care about those characters and you put them into action, then to me the action part is the easy part, right? It's like blowing up buildings and doing car chases, that's just a matter of budget, right? How much money do you have? Anybody can do it. My mom can do it if I give her enough money. So what she can't do though is make you care about who the building fell on, right? And that's where the drama writer would come in. And so I've said before that what most action movies are, which is why I can't watch them, and this has been true since I was 15. So it's not like a new thing to me. is that it's what I call chaos with no consequence. It's fun to look at. It's a spectacle and whatever else, but there's no consequence to it. That car crash that in the middle of the street where cars are flipping all over, nobody ever asked once if any innocent bystander who was walking on the sidewalk was hurt or killed.
Right.
So it's just like, oh, let's just do spectacle. And then at the end, it's like, wow, it takes place in New York, so maybe we should jam a little bit of reality at the very end. So we jam it in, right? I've always said I would do the opposite. Start with your reality and do the car chases and the blow-ups and put it on top, right? So
Mhm.
I don't know. There was a movie called Arrival. It was up for an Academy Award. It's an alien invasion movie, and yet it got an Academy Award nominee. Why? Because to my mind, somebody treated it like it was real, and they
Mhm.
didn't treat it like some goofy alien movie. They went, if this happened, how would this go down? And then they
Right.
went from that. They started with the reality and then added sort of the fantasy into it. And you just went, oh, this is a different alien movie than anything I've seen. Cool. Now, again, not everybody's cup of tea, but to me, I was like, wow, somebody took this deadly serious. Cool. So it's doable, and I think we can do it with superheroes. I think we can do it with westerns. I think we can do it with alien movie. I think we can do it with any topic. It's just from my perspective, it's frustrating, and I'm trying to get more of that in my comic book. So hopefully, the second half of my career with some of the books we do and stuff, we'll get some of that, and we'll just see if there's a big enough audience that wants to go along for the ride.
Well, definitely look forward to that. If you want to do a quick pitch for Spawn 360 and anything else that you have can talk about, just briefly pitch or tell us about, then we'll wrap it up that way.
We came out with a bunch of new titles in 2024. We got a handful in 2025. A lot of them are miniseries. A couple of them are going to be continuing book. What I'm trying to do is do a wide range of books because again, I don't expect anybody to have read every issue of Spawn from 1 to 360, nor do I expect everybody to collect all the books that are in the Spawn universe, right? I always just call it like my creative buffet, right? That you put out, you know, again, Sam and Twitch is literally an urban cop story, right? And then you do your sci-fi story, and then you do, your coming of age story, which is Misery, and then you do your Game of Thrones, with Dark Ages or something, and you just keep adding all these different books, right? We just came out with the Gunslinger, the Deadly Tale of the Gunslinger, which is set in the West. So if you like Western and you don't care about superheroes, this book actually might work for you, right? So I don't want it to all be the same. I want them to all have their own appeal so that you can literally not buy the other books, but still have two books within the Spawn universe that are kind of your favorites. So I again not wanting to sort of push, but I got a book coming out called No Home Here, and that's coming out in January, and I'm quite proud of the first issue just hitting stands here of the Deadly Tale of the Gunslinger that Jimmy Palmiotti and Patrick Reynolds did. It's really gritty and grounded, way more urban in terms of the reality that and so for some people that's good, and for other people they're like, no, I want ray guns and blow ups, and we've got those in other titles, but I don't want them to be on. I don't want the same thing to be in every single book. I just like, here's 10 titles, pick and choose any of it as you see fit to your own personality.
Sounds great, and I want to thank you for taking the time to chat about the book and what you have going on, and we'll hopefully be able to catch up in the near future and see how things are going along the way.
Well, the funny thing is that I've often said, Chad, nobody needs to write me a single email to tell me whether I'm doing good or bad. Sales determine all of it. Like people vote with their dollar. Like I get your emails even when I don't, by the sales data, right? So
Yeah.
I'll know whether we're doing more right than wrong or vice versa by the result out in the open market. So
Well, again, it was a pleasure to chat with you again, and hopefully get to chat with you in the future.
all right, you be good. Thanks for your time today, Chad. You
Oh,
be good. Keep doing what you're doing.
all right. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
All right, be good.